On Friday, we have the Dow Jones Industrial, the New York Stock Exchange Composite, and the SP 500 closed with a new all-time closing high. While the Dow Jones Transportation made a 52-week high, and also the Russell 2000 made a new 52-week high. But the NASDAQ is still lagging behind its all-time high. Now, in addition to that, the Dow Jones Industrial and the New York Stock Exchange Composite Index made a new all-time high, intraday all-time high. So looking at the performance for the week, we see that the Russell 2000 is actually the top performer, gained 1.87 for the week, 41.68 points. And the NASDAQ 100 is actually the lagger. It was the weakest link for the week, and it only gained 0.26%. Or 52 points, while the Dow Jones Industrial gained almost 1% with 412 points, and the Transportation also gained almost 1% with a gain of 145 points or so, and the New York Stock Exchange Composite gained 173 points or 0.88% for the week, and the S&P 500 gained 49 points, almost 50 points or 0.85%. And for year-to-date performance, the NASDAQ Composite, also the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100, they're the top performer with a gain over 20% for year-to-date, while the New York Stock Exchange Composite gained almost 18%, and the Dow Jones Industrial also gained almost 15%. The Russell 2000 gained a little bit over 12%, and the Dow Jones Transportation is the lagger. They only gained 3% or so for year to date. If we look at this sentiment chart here, we notice that the VIX is sitting at 18, so the market participants are not fearful. And also the put-call ratio is down here at 0.61, so definitely the market participants are risk on. And looking at the up-down volume ratio, we see that the up-down volume ratio is still leaning on the positive side, likewise for the daily advanced decline. So we definitely have internal strength leaning toward the positive. And for the new high, new low, we're still seeing more new high, new 52-week high than 52-week low. For example, on Friday, there was only 17 stock made new 52-week low, while over 200 stock made new 52-week high in the New York Stock Exchange. Now on this cumulative AD line, we're actually seeing a subtle, very small negative divergence because today's, the Friday's close is slightly below this day here. See, this is 463.172, and on Friday it's 463.144. So there's a little bit of a negative here, while the S&P 500 closed with a new all-time closing high. So we would expect a little bit of a pullback from the S&P 500 or a little run-up on the daily advanced decline like we saw here that resolved the negative divergence here where we see this negative divergence on the S&P 500 versus the cumulative AD line. And looking at the NASDAQ market, we also see the up-down volume ratio is leaning toward the positive, likewise for the daily advanced decline. So even though the NASDAQ 100 is lagging a little bit, but the internal is still showing strength. And the 52-week high versus 52-week low in the NASDAQ market is also showing positive with more new 52-week high than 52-week low. You can see on Friday there were 46 stocks make new 52-week low and 218 stocks make new 52-week high. And for the short term, the cumulative AD line, the NASDAQ market actually showing a little bit of a positive divergence. See this right here, this cumulative AD line actually moving to a higher high comparing to this high, while the NASDAQ 100 is still below this pivot high. So we're seeing a little bit of a positive divergence, which is encouraging for the NASDAQ. So we probably could see the NASDAQ maybe outperform a little bit in the coming days to try to catch up with the other indexes. So overall, the market internals and also the market participant sentiment are still positive. And right now, the index does not look like it's putting in a top yet. And also we're going to show you another piece of data later on that tell us that we should expect a new higher high for the S&P 500. So stay tuned. Okay, let's take a look at the indexes here. We're gonna start with the SPX, the cash index. As you can see, I got two trend line here. One is this trend line, which is a much longer term than this little bit of a intermediate or near term type of trend line. So basically, it's focusing in this area here. So let me zoom this in here, and we go and take a look at the price here. Right, you see that on Thursday, it actually put in a new all-time high, but did not close with a new all-time closing high. And then on Friday, the S&P 500 closed with a new all-time closing high, but did not put a all-time high. I expect another new all-time high for the S&P 500. What would it be, right? So right now it's up in the new high territory, and there's no way for us to kind of project to see where the potential target level will be. And one of the tools that I use in this circumstance is the Fibonacci extension tool. And basically, I want to measure this move here, and we call this a symmetry move. Basically, if it's going to make the same amount of movement, the same amplitude or the magnitude, okay, of this move, then we're basically looking at 100%. So I'm using the Fibonacci extension tool to help me project that. Right, this is one of the easiest way to do it instead of drawing a little bit of arrow line and then make a copy and then paste it and that kind of stuff. Because right now you look at it, I have a 80%. I also set this 80% and 100%. So 100% is represent of this move here, right? This magnitude. So basically, a lot of people do it this way, right? This is the the slow way, I would say, right? You do this and then you copy this, right? So you want to clone this and then you try to move it up here and map it. So now you get a major move, and then now you gotta go and try to see where it is, right? So it's kind of a little bit of a guesswork, or you could take this number and then add the magnitude to get this level. But why go to that that's so much work to do that if there's a tool already set up for you to easily, right, to get these level. So use the Fibonacci extension tool. And here what I did is I also put in the 80%, right? So if I put in the 80%, then I could see what that 80% is, because not every case or every symmetry move will go up to 100%, but a lot of time it does go to 80%. So that's one of the potential level for the coming week if we are looking at a new high, and that could be 5960 or over 6,000, right? 6,032. Now then there's the other, what I call the MTI, market generated information. Is do the calculation using the option price. What I do is I use the option price from the Friday's close, and I use those, selectively select some price and calculate to determine what is the upper range and the and the lower range of the coming week expected move, based on the market participant, willing to put the money where the mouth is, right? Because they basically already putting the bet on where the market will likely fluctuate between. So based on that, I calculated to be, in the upper range is 5937.50 and 5926.20. That's the upper range. That's pretty close to this 80%, 5960, right? Okay. Now, if it move back, and so the one of the potential area where we might find support, if the S&P 500 pulls back, then it will be the lower range, and based on the option price, I calculate to be between 5803.20 and 5,780. So those are the range. So basically, you're looking for the price to fluctuate, from one extreme to another, and see what it break one of these range and then come down and get down to maybe this 5675 area, or if it push up, then maybe get up to this 5960, or even get up to the 6,000 area for the S&P 500. Now, the reason I did not trade the S&P 500 index is because there are no volume to associate, because I like to use the volume profile to extract, potential resistance support level. Okay? And for the XPX, there's no volume to do that. That's why I would rather trade the E-mini S&P 500 or some that, or sometimes, trade the SPY, the ETF. But most of the time I like to trade the E-mini S&P 500 because it does have volume and a lot of liquidity on there, just like the SPY, right? So let's go and take a look at, the SPY right now, since we are talking about the SPY. Now here's the daily chart of the SPY. Well, basically I'm using 24-hour to plot this. And we see that we have an all-time high here from Thursday, which is sitting at 586.12. But then on Friday, it did not print a all-time high, but it did close with a new all-time closing high. And in addition to that, let's take a look at where the option price, option market was pricing in for the upper range from the past week, and it was between 587 and 586 and change. And you can see that the price came almost up to the upper range last week. And here is what I calculate to be the coming week upper range and the lower range. And the upper range is between 592 and 590.80, and the lower range is between 578.30 and 576. Okay, so those are the range that we be looking for possible, target on the upside, on the downside. Now, in addition to that, I mentioned earlier that I like to use volume profile to look for levels. And as you can see here, right, this is the volume profile between, this time frame here. Basically, I'm looking at the volume profile of these prices here to generate the profile. And right now, I'm looking at this, profile and see there's a distribution here, there's a distribution here, and it is developing a distribution here. So I'm going to let it develop for a little bit more before I start looking at some of these levels here. But right now, we're basically looking at the possibility of, the price coming down here and into the low range and possibly into this distribution at the 573.78 if it come down on the downside. Now, if it continue to move up and break through the all-time high, then we're basically looking at the possibility of move up here to this 590.80 to 592. Now, the other thing that, again, basically looking at the symmetry move, we could also do the same thing like I did earlier on the SPX, and we'll basically do a symmetry move using the Fibonacci extension, and you can see that the 80% major move is somewhere around 593, which is really close to this upper range, right? And also, if we go to a 100% major move or a symmetrical move, then we're basically looking at 600 as the potential target for the SPY. So those are some of the target level on the upside, and on the downside, we're looking at this zone here, this lower range, and the possibility of coming into this distribution here at this 573.78. Now let's take a look at the E-mini S&P 500 future here, the ES. You can see last week the range that we're looking at the upper range is somewhere between 59.30 and 59.23 or so, and the low range is 57.81 and 57.40. You can see that the price actually came up, it closed into this range here, kind of tagged this range up to the upper range. And the other thing that it did is during the Globex or the overnight session, it put in a all-time high, in which the regular trading hour session have not came up and tagged that all-time high. Remember, many times in the past from my other videos, I reference to the fact that at least so far, every time that we see a Globex all-time high, the regular trading hour session will eventually come up and take out that high to validate that high in order to officially put a new high into the record book, because overnight all-time high doesn't count, only during the cash hour, the regular trading hour. So based on that, we're going to be keeping an eye on 59.27 125 for the ES. So when the ES come up and take out that high during the regular trading hour session, then most likely we'll see the S&P 500 come up and also put in a new high, because these two pretty much tracking each other on the movement. Right? After all, this is the future of the S&P 500. Okay, so that's the reason why I'm expecting the S&P 500 to at least make another new high. So and if we take a look at the coming week, this is what the market is pricing in for the coming week. The upper range is between 59.75 and 59.68.75, and the lower range is 58.46 and a quarter and 58.17 and a half. So those are the ranges that we're going to be looking at. And in addition to that, remember I also said that we are looking at the symmetry move. So if I do a little bit of a symmetry move using the Fibonacci extension tool, then you can see that on the 80%, we are looking at 60.24 as the potential target and close to 60.100 for the 100% major move. Now on the downside, other than this lower range, we could also be looking at this 58.07. This is this edge here. Remember, we were talking about the distribution. Okay, so those are the two distribution areas that we want to keep an eye on the downside. Looking at the NQ, the E-mini NASDAQ 100 future here, we notice that it also have a Globex all-time high up here, 21,214.50. Now, I haven't followed the NASDAQ that much to see is the Globex all-time high will have the same effect, telegraphic effect, as the ES for the S&P 500. So I'm not sure this Globex will actually telegraph us to tell us to look for a new high for the NASDAQ 100. But who knows, maybe it does do that, because I haven't gone back and did a study to see does it do that also. Now, if any one of you out there have done this, have some data to say it also do what I have been saying about the S&P 500 regarding to the E-mini S&P 500, kind of telegraphing to us that it will have a new high for the S&P 500 because of the Globex all-time high hasn't been tagged. Okay, so like I said, I have not done the study on the NQ to go and determine is this the case for the NQ and the NASDAQ 100 or not. If you know, send us a comment and I will pass that on to other interested trader. But for now, just looking at the volume profile, we're basically looking at these levels here at the 20,000 area, right? This 20,860. There's a little bit of a high volume node here. And if we get up here, then we're basically looking for the possibility of at least taking out this all-time high and possibly come up to this Globex all-time high here. So right now, that's basically the upside. And in addition to that, we can also do the same thing like we did on the S&P 500 and also the SPY, is to look for a symmetry move based on this particular swing. And you can see that 80% is pretty much up above this all-time high from the Globex, and the 100% is up at the 21,676. Okay, so the 80% is 21,305. So those are a few levels to keep an eye on, or these 80% and 100% major move, the symmetry move, and also the Globex all-time high at 21,214. Now, on the downside, if it come back down, then we're basically looking at the possibility of maybe coming down to this level here. This is the high volume node, the POC, for this composite volume profile, which encompass these prices here. Okay, so those are the level that I'm looking at is this one here, the POC, the composite POC at 20,070. So you basically the 20,000 mark, right? And then we have a little bit of a volume then here just underneath this 19,900. But it's more interesting is to once it dropped below this POC, then we'll probably get down to this area here, this 19,500, 19,400 area. And we take a look at the ETF for the NASDAQ 100, the QQQ. We notice that the price did not come up to the upper range from last week expected move, nor did it come down to the lower range. It's pretty much sitting in the middle of the range there. And in addition to that, it did not make a new high. It's still underneath here on this edge here, this volume edge. So right now, we're basically looking for the coming week. The expected move, the option market is pricing in for the coming week is somewhere between 503.50 and 501.90 for the upper range, and 487 and 484.50 for the lower range. Now again, let's go and do a little bit of a symmetry move here and see could we get some sort of projection on the symmetry move. And here we see that the 80% is somewhere up here at 513.80. So it is way above the upper range or the all-time high here. And the 100% is up at the 522.90, close to 523. So I'm not sure that we'll see price to come up this up to these level here. Maybe it will come up and out the all-time high by tagging the upper range. So that's basically what the upper level to look at if we see a new all-time high for the Q. Now on the downside, it's basically coming back down to this lower range here between 487 and 84, and also this ledge or this volume debt level somewhere around 489. So basically looking at these prices down here, and here's the point of control, somewhere around here. Let me put in a level here so we can see what that is. And it is somewhere around 482.45. So that is the composite point of control. So we could see prices come down here, bounce around and chop around the zone, and come down here to see what we find find some support and push the price back up. Or if it breaks below this point of control, then we'll be looking at the price to come down to this 468 area here, down here at this volume dent here. Okay, so those are the prices that we'll be watching for in the coming week for all these, the SPY, the Q, the ES, and the NQ, and also the SP 500. Now, if you'd like to see the trading level that I put out on a daily basis for the SPY and the E-mini SP 500, then go check out my newsletter at Substack, and I have the link in the description below. And the link is basically smtraderca.substack.com. Now, if you find this video to be useful and informative, be sure to smash the thumbs up to help me promote this video on YouTube. And if you are new to this channel, click on to subscribe to help support this channel. Thank you for watching and good luck on your trading.